We have 2 days until we hit a new moon, and we are in a new moon cycle, which is at the exact same time and juncture point in the collective as the collective is going through a reconciliation process of the fall of ancient Egypt and the end of Akhenaten's reign. When you jump on, say hello. So, how this is relevant is that when we go through timeline reconciliation points, it comes up for every single one of us because we are but one. We are not separate. You are you, but I am you, and you are me, and we are all the same. And there really is no division. And when you can accept that concept, then you can start to see that what I'm experiencing, you're experiencing from some lens, until we transcend and we choose no longer to play into universal conditioning, into ego constructs, into universal aspects of creation, and we can be in the world but not of the world. And that is very, very unlikely for most to be at that point. So whilst you're still in the realms of running from identity and collective conditioning and have karmic cycles that you're moving through, you will move through these energy updates together. And so at the moment, we are in a timeline that is offered up for opportunity to heal and to repair the damage within the quantum field. So if you imagine the quantum field at the moment, the present point in time that is here is the time of the fall of ancient Egypt and Akhenaten as reign of the empire, which is beautiful because Akhenaten is incarnated on Earth. So the fall of that means the fall directly of him in whatever aspect happens, which is beautiful because that the construct of an identity or a consciousness can then be purified. But what that means is that if we look at the ancient Egypt timeline, at this point in time, there was so much severance, there was so much distortion in magic, there was no union. The energy of union and the energy of the Law of One and the Emerald Tablets, that was the original mission for the gods to come into Egypt and share with humanity, had completely met its demise. And so because it had gotten to such a point of severance where none of the original divine unions were in counterpart connection, and each individual had fragmented so much from their own source connection that their original mission had gotten so distorted that the magic that they were creating was creating inversions within our collective consciousness and our human mind. So these different inversions are at their highest point for this timeline, at this point in time. And we are witnessing them within our own experience. So if you imagine the gods at this time being at war, they are at war, they are petty, they are extremely destructive, and they are chasing their own tails, and they are also, it's like this attempt to pull on, attach to something to try and fix in the name of whatever distorted expression for their original soul mission, if they hadn't fragmented so much that their soul mission no longer existed and it had flipped into an agreement with that of a lower vibrational consciousness or dark matter consciousness. But these gods all having different energies, right? We have every single god had a different energetic signature. So every energetic signature that was in these last points of time, in this severance point, it had lost its divinity. It had lost its godliness, right? Because each god came down. Isis was the goddess of healing and magic, and you had, I believe, Sekhmet was of the goddess of war and chaos. But Then you've got the goddess of love and the goddess of fertility, and then you have the goddess of sexual healing, and then you have the sun god, and you have the water elements, and there was a deity for every element of creation. There was a deity to be in devotion of, to honor the elements of life and that of this reality. Now, if you look at this in what is here now, you'll realize that this fragmentation that took place then in this muddied, inverted expression of what these aspects of creation give you, then you'll start to see that there's extreme points of separation that are here in our present moment to look at. Because when our elements do not work together, or our divine expressions are in conflict with each other, then we can't have unification, and we can't have co-creation, we can't have synergy, we cannot have an expression of community, because each element has decided their element's more important, or they want this element, and there has been a complete loss of recognition that each element has its own pure divine expression, and each god or goddess had its own pure divine expression of consciousness. And so these consciousnesses are then extremely muddied in what they are. They are no longer pure in the way that God had intended. And so these aspects are showing up now. And they are showing up in a way to show you where your elements internally are at discord. Where is the fall taking place within you? Where is there so much fragmentation between these different elements, the light, the dark, the love, the chaos, the yin, the yang, right? Where are we holding on and attaching to these aspects of our polarities, either because we want them, because we don't have them ourselves, or we're pushing it away because we've decided it's wrong. So we're in like a real conflict point internally within ourselves. A conflict point where one part of our identity is not speaking to the other part of our identity, and there is no co-communication, there is no connection, and there is no heart-centered love. There is just absolute chaos in the internal experience, because no one is willing to step back and go, hang on, I think we lost sight of the center. I think we forgot that we came here together, which means internally, that I am one, that I am togetherness, and my internal identities of my victim and my perpetrator and my rescuer and my healer and my ruler and my king and my warrior, and all of those identities are going, actually, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, no, 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 and this one's crying, and this one's doing this, and this one's having a tantrum. And so what's happening internally is that your identities are all at play in this chaotic expression, because these identities of collective consciousness were created from these timeline junctures. So even if you weren't in ancient Egypt, and even if you weren't at the fall, you are still connected, because every human being has had a level of being seeded into a godly expression. So every human vessel has a representation of this, these gods or these demigods. We all have that within our genetics. We all have extraterrestrial expressions within our genetics. We all have these templates. We are all infinite beings and infinite creators, and we have this within our ancestral expressions of our physicality. Even if we don't realize, even if we haven't remembered our lineage. But the individuals that then went from ancient Egypt then went into the Assyrian times, or they went into the Celtic, or they went into Greece. And so when you look at your ancestral memory, you'll start to see that not only do you have it in your physicality, but you have it in the human consciousness. because a lot of these templates and inversions were created in the beginning stages. And ancient Egypt is one of the times where there was a lot of fragmentation. This is when the divine feminine was no longer divine feminine, and it split into a light feminine and a dark feminine. Before that, it was just divine feminine. There was no light and dark, it just was. And the same with the masculine. There's all these different fragmentations that have taken place that we don't even realize are ways to keep us separate from our wholeness and our totality in our now moment. So when we tune into what is currently here in relation to the new moon and how this affects you, you have the capacity to witness the multiple identities, the multiple elements. Even if you look at it as the medicine wheel, and you've got the four elements of water, wind, earth, and fire. Even if you look at your internal reality as simplistic as that, and you look at which elements are at war with each other, which ones have completely stepped back, which ones are non-existent in my experience, because each one of those is a representation of a god or a deity in this timeline. And so you have an opportunity to not only look at this within the energy that's here to reconcile your own elemental distortions and the purity and how they are at conflict with each other, and your internal identities and realities are like having fights and pushing and pulling and silent treatment and daggers and all sorts of things are being thrown in your internal reality. That is also happening in the external, and it is with great compassion and love that I share that currently most of the ancient Egypt gods are incarnated now, and they're still playing the same war out. They're still playing into the immaturity of what was, because there's an unwillingness to come into the heart space and to reconcile into the truth and go, hang on, you know that thing that we've been focusing on trying to fix within ourselves in our karmic cycle? Oh, whoops, we're actually doing the exact same thing now, because we've gone into severance. We've gone into separation, and we've gone into a point of conflict. There is not a meeting in the middle. And so this is where the fourth dimension started to come into play. This is where a lot of individual beings went into the underworld at this time, into the realms of hell, so that they could avoid the end of their karmic cycle and having to go through and meet the judge and go into the point of reprimand with meeting God and the different beings that they had chosen to come here and create whatever missions. And so as a way, there was a experience that was created where you could cheat the incarnation cycle. That is why there is this looping as well. Instead of actually going up and meeting the heavens and God or any expression, there's like a, I know this is not funny, but it is for me because I can see it from a higher expression of truth. I'll try not to laugh so much. Anyone who's in the infinite loop of reincarnation actually is in a whole lot of suffering, and they want to get out of it. But what has happened is there's like a loop around from the point of hell to the point of the fourth dimension, which locks people into either going into the fourth dimension in the space between, or going down into hell, and until we come back into an incarnation cycle within our human experience. And this allows us to it was done as a way to create a way to reconcile any of the missions that were not met in totality. And so there is like a suppression barrier point that creates this loop where you move through this. So the fall of ancient Egypt and the time of the end of Akhenaten's reign, there was many beings that went into the underworld and into hell. Now what does that mean for you? It means that you are in the underworld of hell. Which is not a fun place to be when you're not looking through the eyes of God. because the underworld and hell will bring up all of the levels of distortion, all of the demon consciousness, all of the satanic consciousness, all of the times where black magic has been used, all of the times where you've been siphoned and fed off, anywhere that power has been used in misuse. So where we currently in our society, we have many individuals that don't actually realize their potential of their power that they've tapped into, and so they're throwing energies through the field without even being aware of what they're doing. Now, this is just a point of awareness. Eventually they will see through some sort of external consequence what is going on, that they will witness what is taking place. But to bring awareness to it, we can go, okay, so if we're looking at the fall of ancient Egypt and going in, most of these beings went down into the underworld of hell so that they could cheat the incarnation cycle and not leave Earth, so they could try and fix the separation, so the chaos of the internal reality. So where are you currently in so much internal chaos, where all of your elements are at war, that you're trying to actually fix by doing even more distorted things and creating even more fragmentation in the name of trying to heal or reconcile or fix something. And so that is really going to be alive for you in many different ways. In your external experience, you may see how this is playing out, but in your internal experience, there are aspects of the shadow self that are at the point of everyone wants to blame, point the finger, and you did this. This is not my fault. If you hadn't have chosen this, and this is inside as well, right? So everything I say, see it as an external and an internal. There's no separation. What I'm saying about ancient Egypt is here right now with you, with me, whether or not you are there, okay? One, we are one, we are one. And what happens is that this fragmentation that's taking place, and we're trying to fix it. So, right, there's this part of the mind, the consciousness, that's already gone into separation and fragmentation. So there's the ego construct that's starting to control. And the ego construct is controlling a situation to try and make it better. So right now, we are in a big tug of war. A big tug of war. And it's like the lowest point of separation. We're in some of the lowest points of separation, which creates an opportunity for death. Now, not everyone's going to feel this, and you may feel that at different layers of your consciousness level. And just because we're about to go into a new moon does not mean that we are necessarily going to step into new life in the way that we had from our brain or our mind's perspective perceived it to be. But we have an opportunity for death. Death is an opportunity to look at the shadow aspects within ourselves of what needs to die. What needs to die in what I just shared? Conflict, blame, shame, self-persecution, disconnection, justification, projections, internally and externally. These aspects of where we're using these elements so that we can come into wholeness. If I project onto you and show you what you're doing wrong, then we can fix it. Do we see how distorted that is? When I go, actually, I'm all to blame for this, I need to retreat and go back and look at all of the things that I've done wrong and fix them, then I withdraw my energy and I pull it out from people, and I also go into a point of avoidance. This is a push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, which is what our human collective is addicted to. So there is an addiction cycle that's very present in the collective energy at the moment. What are you addicted to? What's your addiction? So addiction is tethering. It's light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, left, right, and you're tethering, or in and out of your heart. You're bouncing in and out of your heart. And this Tethering is the addiction. It's like, oh, I receive something and then I pull away. I receive, I pull away. So what is your addiction point in relation to conflict? What is your addiction point in relation to separation? What is your addiction point in choosing to deny your internal and your external reality as well? And allow yourself to use this story, this awareness, to reconcile your own internal reality, but your own timelines. Allow it to assist in the collective consciousness. And then we also have the opportunity to reconcile and fix and go into the quantum and clear and reconcile the timeline in the quantum field. And when we do that, some of these core expressions and wounds can be completely eradicated from our collective consciousness. They can be completely shifted of those who are choosing with a heart open. And as we choose, we have different bands that are moving up, and ones that are not yet choosing, they have that opportunity. When they move up, they have an opportunity to go, oh, this is easier because I can actually work with this energy because it's not as dense as what it has been in the past. What else is here? The victim template is very much alive within the collective at the moment, and the persecutor. So one is playing the victim and one is playing the persecutor. Now this is often played out in many different roles, but we have more of the realms of the victim being that of what would I say? The victim being more of a covert expression of the light. So it's very much this false light of I do no wrong, and everyone else in the world is creating all of this conflict and all of this drama, and I don't understand why people are acting the way they are. I don't know why someone would do what they're doing. What is wrong with the world today? And there is an expression of from a place of the light, looking at the outside world as being a point of wrongness, rather than seeing, where am I contributing to this? Where am I also contributing to the chaos and the separation by continuing to blame that which is outside of myself? And what if I was willing to see that my outside world is a direct mirror to that which I am in the here now moment? And so there is that as the victim template. It's very much in this false light. It's not fair. That's the perfect expression for the victim at the moment. It's not fair. It's not fair. Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to the world? It's not fair. So looking at where that is within you and externally. And then when you look at the persecutor, and the persecutor template at the moment and the energetic signature of that, you've got the persecutor of control, power, and what would I say? Volatility or violence. It's like the point of like the persecutors at the point of like complete retaliation. And so you've got it's not fair, and you've got the retaliation of the persecutor of you deserve this, you did wrong, right? That's that. I've definitely had many of those in my experience, in that real overt way of you're the problem, you're not seeing things properly, and this like level of gaslighting in this projection energy and this like real volatility, and then it's followed by other behaviors. And if we look at the story of the narcissist and the empath, and we look at them internally and externally at the moment in relation to those two energy signatures and their extremes at the moment in conflict, you have this cycle of abuse that takes place, right? A cycle of abuse is a cycle of fragmentation. It's a core wounding that plays out and continues to move through the internal and the external experience. But the narcissist, this would be when the cycle of abuse hits that point, right? That point of what's the word? The narcissist meets the point where they blow up. So it's like they've gotten to a point where they can only retain their energy so much, and then they explode. So we're in the explosion point within the abuse cycle where excuse me, where this will happen internally. If you've got an explosion point, there's a part of you that will have that complete, it's like that point of blame of you made me do this. And the empath, or that victim template that's here is in the point of, they usually go into some sort of freeze, withdrawal. There's an aspect of they might fight or run, and it happens from a point of like, that was so much, I don't even know how to deal with what just happened, right? So there's shock in the field, and the shock will be whoever or whatever aspect of yourself is playing into the victim. And the persecutor part is the explosion. So we are in shock and explosion, and we are in some yummy, delicious, explosive moments that allow for us to really witness and see these aspects that are playing out, so that we can meet them with internal healing. And instead of allowing those moments of explosion from occurring, when you're feeling that intensity, when you're feeling that inside of you, and if you're using the addiction cycle, right? If there's an addiction cycle, you know, when you're in addiction, you know when it's getting to a point where it's like, and you either reach for an addiction, or you're in a point of like complete numbness of what's taking place. But when that energy is there, it's like, okay, all right, so there's something really big that's about to explode. Why do I want to explode? Why do I want to make someone else or myself wrong for something? What am I not seeing that if I saw the energetic intensity that's building up in my body, and the fact that I'm in internal chaos, what would happen so that extreme explosion does not have to occur in your inner or outer reality? Because when those explosions, when the gods are at war in our outside world, it is not fun. No one's having fun. No one's in their heart. No one's enjoying life. It's like, it's a war zone. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to be in those points of disconnect. It's heartbreaking to be in that much conflict. It's heartbreaking to feel that you're in a point of energetic expression like that, and that it's gotten to that point that when you're in it and you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly where I am. When you go back and you're like, oh, you look back and you look maybe 5-10 steps back, and you realize the aspects of yourself that you played into, the push, the pull, the projection, the volatility, the silent treatment. These are the moments, all of these points, whatever it is, whether you're shaming someone, guilting someone, telling them this is how they should feel, or shaming or self-projecting on yourself. When you're at that point and you're in that explosion, and what's left after the explosion point is like, where is everyone, right? There's that feeling of like, oh, fuck, right? What happened? How did I let this happen? Before that, those are the opportunities that we have to go, actually, I don't want to play into the war anymore. what is being shown within me so I can meet this internal conflict, so I can lean in. Yes, it might be hard. You might already be in the explosion, and if you are, have love and gratitude for that. But go, I don't actually have to hold on to the war anymore. I can surrender, I can yield, I can wave my white flag and go, this doesn't serve. I am reaching out to that person, or I am going to be the person that's going to soften and yield. I am going to say something. I am going to express from my heart. May not be received, but you're not letting the war continue the division within yourself. You're no longer going to shame yourself or rage or create internal and external conflict, because you can see there is not one innocent party. No one is innocent. Whilst there is chaos in your life, you are the chaos. Whilst there is violence in your life, you are choosing and creating the violence. Whilst there is attack, you are the attacker. We are not separate. Whatever is here in your internal and external war, you're creating. So what would allow for the war to end? What would allow for love and yielding and the heart to open and compassion? What happens when the war ends? We look around and we see the hurt. When the war ends, we see how our actions have hurt one another, the destruction. And yes, destruction and death is necessary within our reality, but we can choose it consciously. We don't have to destroy our internal or external reality to create new life, to rebuild, to create a new foundation. We can do it from a place of awareness. Allow yourself to see how you want. Are you even going to engage in the war? Or are you going to recognize that the war never, ever, ever creates peace? The war never creates peace. Peace is created when we choose peace. And we decide that we'd rather surrender and yield than pick up our weapons on the battlefield. I love you. I hope that everyone felt a sense of activation within this energy reading. There are some collective choice points at the moment in relation to this. The war. The war, the war, the war. I chose to give up the war. I chose to surrender and give the war up in my own expression at this point in my reality, and to yield into God's word, to stop the control. Which is why my communication is a little bit, because I'm integrating a new, I am Ariati and Kiana. I am adjusting to a new frequency within my body, which is rather uncomfortable. So thank you for receiving this message in the totality that I can gift it in this current embodiment of what I'm holding. If you desire some assistance with anything that has come up for you in relation to this, please reach out. I am holding space for quantum healing, for transmissions, for inner child work, for ancestral clearings, for relationship counseling, karmic cycles, all the things. Just put them all into one circle. The totality of remembrance and truth. I do not align and agree with the Christmas narrative, so I do not support that in my current consciousness, which means I am as life, presence and purpose as usual, and when God speaks, There is an opportunity to express. So if God speaks to you and to me, then we will connect. I love you. If this feels true for you to share with anyone, please share, and have a beautiful surrender to the war.